grandma going there, and we used to have really good and fun parties there, called mitzvah parties.
Yeah.
And back then, the Jewish community, everybody was invited. All the Jews were invited. You didn't need an invitation for the bar mitzvah parties or anything. And they always had a band.
Yeah.
There wasn't a DJ. And no parents, very few parents were there.
Ah, yay.
So, I mean, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
We had fun.
So, all right.
I grew up a block down from the Garfunkels.
I invited them to participate. I haven't heard back yet. We'll see. And
Well, their family's been here since Orthodoxy started in Savannah, I believe.
like the 1880s, I
Yeah.
think. 1880s.
We,
Something like that.
I didn't know this, but somebody was telling me that Rabbi Solomon, who's my great uncle,
Oh my gosh, I didn't
George
know that.
Solomon, is George Cohen, and that he's named after him.
That I did know.
Yeah.
AJ told me.
Yeah, AJ was my mother's first cousin.
Oh my gosh.
It's a small world.
It's incestuous. Almost.
It's But that's how I ended up in Savannah. Well, my parents did in 1956. But there's a small reform camp in, I think, Beaufort, and Rabbi Solomon went over there in 1910 and did the, laid the cornerstone.
Laid the cornerstone for that.
Yeah. So.
Because he knew that there was a need for it, or they asked him, or
Well, there was a lot of Jews in this area, because of commerce and all that. I would think, but I liked the history behind Rabbi Solomon and being a relative of mine. My father, after World War II, was an engineer, structural engineer, and he built bridges. But he traveled around. They ended up in the mid 1950s in Aiken, South Carolina. He built the nuclear plant there. He was one of the supervisors there. So after that was built, my mom said, we need to go someplace, plant our roots, and stop moving around, because they moved around a lot. And they ended up in Savannah because Rabbi Solomon was already dead for about 10 years, but his wife, Aunt Julia, was here. And we had the Cohens here. We had some family here, and they said, we're going to put our roots down here. And I was born a couple of years
so.
ago.
Let me take you back a little bit, just so I get this part of the story. So, where did your family? How many generations are you Georgia, and where did your family originally come from?
My family originally came from Alexandria, Louisiana, which was a large Jewish, a lot of Jews lived there. What happened was my great-great-grandfather came over in 1850s, late 1850s. His name was Mires, too. And he came over from Alsace-Lorraine, France. And they landed in New Orleans thinking they would settle there. There were some relatives, but at that time, New Orleans, there were more Jews in New Orleans than anywhere else in the United States. So being
This is the 1850s?
1850s. So, or in the southern United States, I would say. And so they said, you can't stay here. So they sent him up the river to a place called Alexandria, and there's Rosenthal farms, there's a Rosenthal community, there's Rosenthal Cutlass, or it used to be Rosenthal, it's an auto place there, used to be there. Used to sell cutlasses, Pontiac, Cadillac, and all that. And so that's where my father, his family landed. And my great-grandfather, at age 18 or 19, enlisted in the Moors Guard in Louisiana, which was a fighting force for the Confederacy. And, he trained and he marched up to Virginia, around Manassas, Virginia, was in a battle, was shot and wounded in his shoulder. Well, he marched back to Louisiana, finally made it back to Louisiana, where in 1897 he died, and on his death certificate, died of wounds, because it got lead poisoning, because it was never taken out.
Do you have some of this document?
Yes.
These documents?
Yes. You can Google Mires Rosenthal and it'll all come up. Now, my father tells a story like this, that while he was marching back, he was taken prison by the Union Army. But he was later released because he couldn't speak a word of English. But it's all, I don't know if that's completely true. That's the story he tells me. He used to tell me growing up. But he was a shopkeeper in Louisiana. He was a postmaster general in Alexandria, and he was a member of the city council. So
What is it about? Well, first of all, you said they first landed in Louisiana, they were told that they couldn't live.
yeah, they couldn't
Is
live
that
here.
because it was a restricted area and
No,
Jews didn't live there? Or?
they said, what was told to me, there was already too many Jews there in New Orleans. And so they set up a community in Alexandria. And he had two of his brothers, Moses and Isaac, who also fought in the Confederate Army. Also, as the story goes, they had nothing else better to do at the time. So,
Did they have slaves?
No, they did not. Most people who fought for the Confederacy did not have slaves. They fought for their right to live their life as they choose. Which of course, if other people had slaves, it was okay.
If they came from Alsace-Lorraine, I understand why they would feel very comfortable in Louisiana because there's a lot of Cajun and French influence. Did they speak French? Did they speak Hebrew?
They spoke French, and my dad said they spoke some Yiddish too.
They spoke Yiddish?
Some Yiddish. Not a whole lot. See, Alsace-Lorraine is right between Germany, and they fought over it for years. So that was where the Yiddish would come in.
So what kind of jobs did they have there?
My father was, my great-great-grandfather was a postmaster general at one time. He was a shopkeeper. In fact, my brother looked up an advertisement in the Alexandria Telegraph newspaper of Mires. That was the name of the store. And it sold cheap wine and beer, which, I'll email that to you tonight, okay?
Please do.
I'll do that.
And if you have a link to
I
the
will.
bio,
I will.
because I'll use it. I think part of what I'm trying to do is just to show that there was that Jews established themselves as best they could wherever they could,
And they were part of the community.
they become part of the community very quickly because fitting in might not be something they're able to do, but servicing the community in any way they can, and because of it, and because of who we are as Jews and our traditions, we actually come to leadership positions. So here they weren't allowed to live in one area, so he starts another town. The postmaster general is very interesting because that's a government job.
Back then, I don't know if it was or not. It might have been more of a volunteer thing, or he had a shop, and probably back then it's a shop where they had the. I would imagine.
Is it something about being Jewish or being restricted in trade that you think made so many Jews coming over here start a mercantile or a food store, or the other one I've heard is tailor. Everyone was a tailor.
There was not too many good Jewish farmers around. So if you look at the trades that were, we weren't in the shipping business so much. So I guess being in the clothing business, or the food business, the market business, it's relatively an easy business because you have credits and you have debits. Either you make money or you don't. So we had to make money to go for it.
So up until the Civil War, they pretty much stayed in their own community, and I would assume with the Civil War that they had to branch out because they had to travel with the war. Do you know anything about the women?
Not much. I had a great aunt who was a hat shop owner in New Orleans.
Okay.
Called the Levy Hat Shop, and she was from Alsace-Lorraine too. And so was B.H. Levy and his family. Some of them came over from over there. From what
So are you somehow related to the Levies?
Possibly. I had back in the late 1700s in a small town in Germany. I have it somewhere, and I'll get you that information too. One of my relatives was a safer, wrote a Torah.
I'm amazed that you know this stuff. Pardon me, hold on. I am amazed that you know this stuff.
My dad kept good records, and we'd find stuff out, and he had great aunts that lived up to the 1980s. So she was like 100 years old. She would tell him all this stuff. She was living in Chicago. And one was actually living in Houston also.
Okay, so so I know how you started out, and I know about a little about Civil War involvement, and then your parents moved here to Savannah.
Right.
So what year would that's
50.
after Rabbi Solomon's
Solomon died in
dies.
45. So this was around 1956, I believe. 55, because they were here 2 years before I was born.
Okay, so tell me about growing up Jewish in the South.
I didn't have any problems. There was people that was ignorant. I'll never forget, I didn't go to private school. I went to Beach High School, which was a predominantly African-American school. And we were probably 45% white, 55% black. And I remember going there and just some of the, not knowing, there was a large Jewish community that went there to Beach High School. And I'll never forget the first time I really realized that they were picking up sides for basketball in the gym. And you had the blacks, you had the whites, and you had the Jews, and that's the way it was. And a buddy of mine said, just go with it. But I grew up playing basketball here at the JA, so even being small, I knew my way around the basketball court. I used to play with the Garfunkels and the Bloombergs and all the guys, the Cohens and all. So it was fun, and it was we had a lot of fun.
You mentioned growing up with a lot of very religious families. I got the impression that the JA catered at various times to one group or the other, but not everybody. Is that true?
Never, not when Mr. Geffen was here, who was prominent. He was the executive director of the JA, I guess from the early 60s to 70s, late 70s, maybe even longer. Every night, if there weren't kids running around in here, something was wrong. We had AZA once a week. Then you had BBG. I remember Margie Mazo, once a year, she'd put on a play here, or a musical or something with all the kids. This place had a game room, which was probably 3,000 square feet. There wasn't a Jew in Savannah that couldn't play ping pong or pool with the best of them. We also at one time had intramural football. We had tackle football teams from the JA. And we had teams that would play other teams in the area at one time. I mean, we were very competitive. We were part of the community.
Where are the children? Where are they?
I think if you look at the JA now, it's not conducive to children. There's no game room. I think also that's part of it. Part of it is a lot of Jews live in the landings. A lot of them live on the islands. I used to walk here all the time or ride my bike from Kensington Park a mile away. You think parents would let their kids do that now?
At different times.
It is.
But one of the conversations I had was with Meyerhoff, and I asked him, why the change? Because I remember we moved here in '86, and there was a game room, and I remember the kids all hanging out. And
every day here.
Why did they change? They changed it for security reasons, but he said the demographics changed. People didn't want the kids running around, and there were no kids to run around anyway. So and I've also often talked to them about reestablishing
I guess not 21st century. But, do the games, Game Boys and all that, computer labs. You do it like that and also have your pool tables and, active wear like that. But, we had basketball teams growing up, intramural teams here. We all played handball, or racquetball.
The generation before talks about needing the JA because they weren't allowed in other clubs. When you were growing up, it was much later. Did you experience any things that kept you out of other people's clubs or off other people's teams?
I never did. I played some intramural. We had a local team, the Bobcats in Kensington Park. I played for them a year or two, and there were other Jews, George Steinheimer and others, David Kramer. We played on those teams. I never experienced that. Savannah is such a cultural, diverse city. if you realize it's been since the early 1960s since we had a white Anglo-Saxon mayor. We've had Jewish mayor, we had Greek mayor, black mayors. I mean, it's, and I think Savannah's always been that way since Henry Mires was the mayor back in the late 1890s.
Any relation to you?
No, M-E.
Spelled different, right?
But Herman Meyers. But we've always been so diverse in this community, and this community has always worked together for the greater good. See, a lot of people ask me why I don't have this deep Southern accent, and that's where I come from, a port city where there's so many people together. Our accents are dwindled together. You know, I still say y'all and all that, but still love my fried chicken. But you know, we're so diverse in this areas.
I'm trying to piece together how it is that the same people and groups of people that were best friends growing up don't communicate well now. What is
That's
it that we're
false with
doing
me.
differently?
That's false with me. My best friends in the whole world, Arthur Graves, 2 doors down from me. I talk to him once a month. John Rothbaum, who was confirmed at Mikveh Israel. He now lives in Atlanta. Both his parents have since passed, and I talk to him. In fact, his kids are my kids. They call me Dad all the time. David Crammon, who lives in France, I've been over there to see him. His mother still lives on Pemberton Court in Jackson Woods. I talk to him either Skype or email all the time. Lee Greenberg, he was confirmed with me. I just got off the phone with him yesterday. You know, I stay in close communication with all my friends. I know where they are. Mark Wall, who lives in Rome, Georgia, grew up with him. We used to play poker just about every Sunday night.
But
Growing up when we were 12 or 13.
But none of them stayed. Why did they move away from Savannah, and why do you think you stayed?
I stayed because of work and my parents' security, I think. And David moved because he met a nice lady from Europe, and she wanted to move back. And he's living the life of Raleigh now. He lives in Cap d'Antibes, right in between Nice and Cannes. And he takes the train every day to Monaco to work at the University of Monaco. John Rothbaum moved to Atlanta because he's an idiot. No, he's my friend.
I'll edit that one out.
No, John moved, he met a girl who's a doctor, Dr. Barbara Osolov, and she got a job at Emory, and he doesn't work. He was a house dad. He'll tell you he works, but he doesn't. And he calls me and says, I'll be in town this Wednesday. Get off and let's play golf. I say, John, I got to work. What? What are you talking about? He's good friends with Dr. Big, too. He'll tell you the same thing. John has never been on time for anything in his life. In his life. We went on a road trip up the Bourbon Country with him, me and a couple of friends, and we tell John if we had to be someplace at 10 o'clock, we tell him we have to be there at 9, and we still are late.
You mentioned David Bick. The Bicks have a long-time family history here in Savannah, just like your family did. Was there ever any family rivalries between the long-standing families?
Not really. There were always arguments. You know, people think, you know, my father served on the board of the JEA and Congregation Mikveh Israel. Of course, there's different ways of doing things. My father didn't like technology, so he thought people could do the same thing with an electric typewriter that they could do with a server and a computer. So this was back in, I guess, 1980s. You know, my dad was served on the board of Mikveh Israel. Miss Lynch was still there, and they were trying to get her a computer or I forget what you call them now, where you just do typing.
Word processor.
Word processor. That's very good. And my dad said, she just needs a... So.
I've spoken to people who said that if you were members of Mikveh Israel, there was a time that you weren't a member of the JA, and that it was very hard to get people from Mikveh Israel to serve at the JA because they considered this a place where a lot of the Orthodox stayed or played. Did you find that true?
I never did, not until I hung out here until the late 1970s. Even when I was in college, I'd come here during the weekends and stuff like that. I never found that. Of course, we're all Jews. I don't know if you should put this in there or not, but Miss Kraft told me, I was talking to her about the division from Jews about the different conservative to Orthodox reform. She said, Bubba, Hitler didn't care. We were all Jews. He say, you're reformed, you're going second, you know what I mean? So, I mean, it didn't happen. We're all Jews, we all belong together, we just worship a little bit differently. I think that proved it last Monday night when so many people from different, and I think even the rabbi from BB, you know, when he thanked everybody, you can tell he was very pleased. If there's divisions, it is from people not knowing and not realizing that we're all in this together, and that, you know, we all want the same thing. We just believe there's 10 different ways of doing it.
What was your favorite memory growing up about being in Savannah? And then is it different than your favorite memory being Jewish growing up in Savannah?
Well, I hung out a lot with different ones. Sam Meyer and Carrie Harriet. Sam Meyer, Jewish guy. Carrie was a nice Catholic boy. And I hung out with them a lot during my middle school years and all. And they were all over 6 foot, and I was 5'2". Nobody ever messed with me or anything, so I hung out with them. And Kerry was like one of us, and we were like one of him. You know, he's one of my good friends. He still lives in Savannah, so does Sam. He's a boat captain. And just hanging out with them and my other friends. I had such a great, there was never not anything to do. You can always find something to do with these guys. Any of my friends, we always could find something to do, get in a little bit of trouble once in a while, but and the JAA was central to us back then. I can remember coming here in the morning, playing racquetball, playing basketball, swimming in the pool. The pool was always packed on Sunday. It was so much fun. And they had a little snack bar out there too. And that time you can get anything you wanted. But back to what you were saying about the division, you know, there were probably some, but I didn't care. You know, this was my playground. Now, what you just said about my favorite part was being free here in Savannah to do what we please. I was never denied anything except by my father, who denied me the right to be too crazy and too wild. I was the youngest of 4 boys, so he knew how to handle me. He was trained well.
Were you bar mitzvah?
No, I was confirmed.
Explain, when you were growing up, what the minhag, what the custom was, and why.
Confirmed, none of us knew Hebrew. You were not taught Hebrew. You might know a little bit, pronunciations and stuff, and we did say the prayers, Baruch and all that in Hebrew growing up. But we'd go to Sunday school, you know, and my confirmation class, I guess we were 14 or 15, and our class was with the rabbi. We'd sit in the rabbi's study with him for 2 hours. And I remember Rabbi Reuben, his classes were more lectures, and he would tell us about life as being a Jew and what life expects out of us. And it was really interesting, and we all loved Rabbi Reuben.
It was girls and boys together?
Yes, yes. And before that, we went to Sunday school every year. And we used to all carpool down there. I did with the Lefflers and several other families.
Did your more traditional friends think it odd that you went to Sunday school and you didn't learn Hebrew?
One did one time. I remember Charlie Garfunkel. He lived, 100 yards away from about 5 houses down. You don't know Hebrew and you're a Jew? I want you to read this right here. Read this right here. And I said, I can't do it. Can't do it. But I'm friends with Charlie now, so and it bothered me a little bit. But I'm kind of glad I didn't have to read Hebrew. I couldn't hardly do my regular schoolwork. But I admire them. I do. And all these kids now, like the bar mitzvah we had last week, 2 weeks ago, Friedman, the bronze, one before that. Last year, the 3 we had, I think we got several more coming. I love these kids. They're so great and they're so smart to learn this. Friedman plays football, learns Hebrew, doing his regular school at Country Day, one of the hardest schools there is. I mean, these kids are great, and they're going to grow up to be wonderful people, and also wonderful Jews too, because they're having this great experience.
Do you think Savannah Jews somehow break the stereotype of what a Jew is? For somebody who is, you know, just thinks that a Jewish person is someone who lives in New York. And
I think because we're spread out through the community. Sylvan Terrace used to be mostly Jews, and then of course that's changed, and now Jews live everywhere. So we're an integral part of the community. You know, we go to private, we go to public schools, we participate in everything. So I mean, you know, I know in New York there's just suburbs of just Jews still. You know, you walk through these areas, and I don't know if that's so much true with the reform there, but in Savannah, just being accepted for who you are, and you know, it's our religion and it's our way of life. But one of the things I love about being a Jew, you will never find a Jew knocking on your door Sunday afternoon, 2 o'clock, and say, "Let me tell you about the Talmud. Let me tell you about my Torah." You know. How's your day been? Do you have a drink of water for me at least? You know, to be a Jew, you gotta want to be a Jew. Nobody's gonna come ask you to be a Jew. You know, and it's great. You know, we're chosen to be who we are. I mean, I love it. I mean. Especially like a name like Bubba Rosenthal in Savannah, Georgia.
how in the world did you end up being a
Well,
Bubba?
I had 3 older brothers, and they were about as dumb as I am. So they couldn't say brother, so they said Bubba. And, you know, it's Jewish tradition. You don't name your son after the father if they're still living. My father did it anyway. I'm Mires Jr. And so I guess they called me Bubba instead of calling me Mires. And there's actually another Bubba here in Savannah who's Jewish, Bubba Adler, who I grew up with about a block down the road. Another guy I played football and basketball with and ran the streets with when I shouldn't have been.
I went from never, ever, ever knowing a Jewish Bubba to meeting 2 within like a week of each other. And I thought, oh my goodness, what are we in for here? The South. But Savannah's never impressed me as being the deep South. There seems almost a gentility here, and there's also, as backwards as we are some ways, we're very progressive in others. Do you remember anything, any time when you were a teenager maybe, where you thought Savannah is just nowheresville and you need to explore other things? Or can you think of an example where Savannah surprised you with how progressive it was?
Early 1980s, Savannah surprised me with what happened with Savannah College of Art and Design. Best thing that ever happened to Savannah in the world. I can remember growing up with my father, going down to Broughton Street in the 60s and all, packed full of people, couldn't find parking spaces. Then I remember in the late 70s, early 80s, when at night you would not dare go down there. The only restaurant down there was on River Street. Couple of places down there. River Street was just starting to get where it was, growing rapidly during the late 70s, but Broughton Street was no man's land. Everything was closing up. You had Levy Jewelers, you had Tanner's Hot Dogs, and maybe a couple of more places. And now you go down there. It's great. There's so much energy in Savannah. And as a Jew, I see it as great for our merchants and what's happening. And all these young people walking around. Downtown Savannah is safer than Southside Savannah will ever be. And it's changed because of demographics, good or bad. But when I go to Mikveh Israel, one of my favorite things to do on Saturday morning is sit in Monterey Square. Just watching the people walk by. The tourists, the SCAD students, the locals walking their dogs. Savannah's a dog city. People love their dogs. I love mine. But it's a wonderful thing. I mean, I'm so proud of the way that Savannah accepted SCAD and what's happened downtown in my city. And it's great.
The United Way building next to us was once a church building that was torn down to become that brick building. And I had heard when we first moved here that there was consideration that the other two synagogues had moved south side, and that they were better serving the Jewish population because the demographics had changed, that there was consideration to getting rid of the Mikveh Israel building on Monterey Square. I also remember a conversation where the United Way building, before it was United Way, that space was offered to Mikveh Israel to put up a school, and it was considered that, we didn't need any more space, and they didn't take the building because of they couldn't pay the taxes, so they decided not to, and then it became something else. And that only became really difficult when they realized that they were going to have to do a building drive in order to increase the size of what we had, and we could have had a whole building right next door. Were you or your parents involved in any of these doings? Do you remember any of these discussions about movement of Jews and demographics?
I love to have the United Way building now. I think it'd be great for us, that we could really do something with it. I don't remember any of that, and one thing I tell people, and when I do, once in a while I do docent down there when I have the time, is that it's great to be in Savannah. It's great to be part of living history. To go to synagogue on Saturday and having Marion Mendel sitting 2 rows up from me, and the stories that she can tell you, and she's a direct descendant, and marriage of a direct descendant, and the things she knows and what's her heart into the place, to me is just wonderful. And every day I learn something more. I go in there, and we have, I think, one of the most beautiful sanctuaries there is in the world. The other day, about a month ago, I was just looking up, and I noticed on the transom, this little wooden hand carved little figures up there, not people, but along the transom, on the sides of them. I never noticed that. I'll have to look.
You're not talking about the little 4-leaf.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just think, somebody in 1870 had to carve those things. I noticed that. I love staring at the plate glass windows. I mean, they were done with a purpose. And the people who did those, to me, are amazing. And when you tell people that the first 3 that was put in above the beamer of a cost of $500 and some odd, people, and their boards just there to 330 a cent. And it's just lovely. I mean, it's such an honor to be there and watching the people come in. And what's amazing is when you see tourists come in and look in there. And of course, the first question they ask, was this ever a church? No. Then I said, but it does have a cross in the middle, so to make you feel at home if that feels better.
Of all the things that Savannah has taught you, is there anything that you'd like to impart to the next generation? I'm doing video because I think it's a little more accessible to the next generation of children, because they do everything with, visual stimulation. So, yeah. So what is it that you think that Savannah can offer anybody, but especially a Jewish person, in terms of settling here?
We're like Alice's Restaurant. You can get anything you want here. I mean, there's great colleges here. A wonderful port. We have our Mercer Medical School here. We have a Memorial Hospital, a learning hospital, a teaching hospital. Anything a Jew wants is here. We have Orthodox, Conservative, Reform. We have recreation here. Savannah is just a great city. And you talked about the Deep South, and when people think about Deep South, they think about racism. I always taught my children, I said, Savannah's not a racist city. And I think America is not racist. I said, that doesn't mean there's not racism out there or a racist out. I said, you notice in Savannah, people working together of all colors and creeds and religion. That's what's so great about Savannah. I mean, it's just neat to see it.
Is there something specific about ethical teachings of Judaism or things that you learned because you were, we are people of the book, that help you deal with race relations growing up in Savannah?
I was always taught that you look at somebody, Martin Luther King said that himself, judge somebody by the character instead of the color of their skin. Always look at people. If I see somebody, I say, hey, look at that black guy there, look at that white guy there. It's just a description. It's not derogatory. And I think a lot of times people take it too seriously. They need to loosen up a little bit. Don't be so politically correct and, go with it. I mean, it's a description of who you are. Like, I'm a short little guy. I know I'm short, so what? Look at that tall drink of water. So what? It's the same thing you say, hey, he's tall or he's black or he's white or whatever. And I think we need to realize in Savannah that there's this diversity here in Savannah that makes us what we are, makes us the great city we are. It's great to grow up here in Savannah. So much to do.
How old are your children?
I have 31, 28, and my 20-year-old.
And none of them have chosen to move back to Savannah?
Not now. Well, one is in Savannah right now until she finds a job. She has her PhD living at home right now. I'm so happy.
What's the PhD in?
Pharmaceutical research,
Okay.
growth and outcome. And she hasn't found a job, but she's got some others in the hopper. She thought she had another one, so she stopped looking. And that was not smart. Of course, Daddy can't give her any advice.
No.
She has a PhD. I barely got through high school. So.
Oh, I have to ask. Mikveh Israel's relationship with Israel is a little different than what one would expect from Jews in America. Growing up, what did they teach you about Israel, and what do you remember about, I mean, you were certainly not born when they were dealing with statehood, but about Jewish fights in the 60s and 70s, the 6-Day War, the Yom Kippur War.
6-Day War. I don't remember. I think I was 10 years old at the time. I just remember we went to war and we won it very quickly. I remember more about the Yom Kippur War because it was on Yom Kippur and being at the JEA and everybody was solemn, very solemn, and I didn't realize what was happening. And then we were explained during the service and all that. And then I was a member of AZA at the time, and I was told at the end of, my father said at the end of the night, when I have a break fast, we're going to the BB. And all the Jewish men met at the BB. And AZA, the first time I ever seen this happen in a synagogue, we passed around. It was a metal plaque like they have in churches that people were putting money in and checks in to send to Israel. So and the place was packed.
That's particularly amazing.
Absolutely.
Considering Mikveh Israel doesn't fly an Israeli flag.
Yeah. No, they don't. Now, I remember seeing them there before. Did you ever remember seeing an Israeli flag at Mikveh Israel?
I don't know if that's done consciously or was
Yeah,
that
it is.
from
When you were confirmed and when you went to religious school, did you ever see an Israeli flag in the synagogue?
I thought there was always one in the social hall.
That might have been where it was.
There was always one in the social hall.
I asked a couple of older members, because I get asked that doing.
But is there not one on the Bima?
No.
Has there never been one on the
I
Bima?
think there was, and there had been some time before. I remember B.H. Levy swears they're not, and they never will be one. And I said,
Junior
yes,
swears there'll never be one?
be one. Is what he tells me.
Why?
That's B.H. Levy. But
Because Israel for him is not a political reality, because we need to show America that we're Americans.
yeah, that's what he said. Why should we put it up there? We're American, we're not Israeli. But when it get to conflicts, they do. My personal thing is I think we should have one up there. and I think it'll change.
Has that ever been brought up before the board?
Very controversial.
I mean, I've never heard a word about it.
I was told, let's
What?
wait, that's one of the things I wanted to do. Is that on right now? Cut it
Yes.
off.